Everyone, thank you so much for joining and putting an hour aside to join us and these amazing agency owners and leaders. I'm Ez, I'm the MD of Spencer Lane. And again, just thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it, and hopefully it will be valuable to you. Really excited to be the host for this webinar. Anyone who knows me knows I love tech and recruitment, so this is a perfect webinar for me to host. So the webinar will be on tech stack for success and how these agencies are using tech in their recruitment businesses. And the topics we'll be covering today are agency success stories through 2020 and the tech that made a difference for them, how to automate processes in order to focus on important client relationships, and how tech stacks can help tackle any continued recruitment challenges for the next year. And as I said, I'll be facilitating this session today and would really like to introduce you to our speakers. Jackie Russell, Managing Director at National Workforce. Sinead Connolly, Director and Co-founder at Lotus People, and Lynn Johnson, who is the Managing Director at Mayday Recruitment. And I'm going to start handing over to you guys so you can introduce yourselves properly. Sinead, do you want to kick us off?
For sure. Hi, Ez. Hi, everyone. It is lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Sinead Connolly, and I am co-founder and director at Lotus People. We are business support, HR, and talent recruitment. And we are based in Sydney, and Lotus is one of 4 in the wider Sustain group. So that consists of sustainability, Sustain digital, and Sustain health. We're about 50 people in the offices in Sydney, and Lotus are 10 of those. And that's me.
So, thanks so much, Sinead, and thanks for joining us. Jackie, do you want to give us a bit of an intro to you and your business?
Yeah, sure. For me, been in the industry for 25 years, so looking at technology over that time and how nothing changed for many, many years. In the last sort of 5 years, we've seen so much change. So that's really exciting. I'm the owner of National Workforce and the Managing Director. We're 12 years old, so we're still finding our way through the myriad of the industry, specialise in industrial, commercial, hospitality, although our largest part of the business is our blue-collar labour hire piece. So we do have 7 branches across Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. So that's us.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jackie. Lynn.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lynn Johnson. I'm the MD of Mayday Recruitment Group. Mayday Recruitment traditionally was a corporate support agency, so recruiting all across Australia for corporate clients in HR, marketing, finance, business support. In the last couple of years, we've also started a consulting business where we specialise in contact centre digital recruitment. And we also have a blue-collar business, Mayday Blue, which is technical roles in construction, manufacturing, engineering, both on the sort of permanent temp and labour hire side as well. That's me.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys, for joining. Really appreciate it. Now, before we kick off with a few questions, just a reminder for anyone who's in attendance, please feel free to pop your questions in the Q&A box. If they're relevant to that particular question at the time, then we'll ask the panelists. If not, we'll get to them towards the end of the webinar. Awesome. I reckon we can kick off with our first questions, guys. So yeah, one of the things that obviously excites me is tech. And the range of agencies that we've got on the panel today. So we've got obviously white collar in Lotus and Mayday, and then blue collar with Jackie, and multi-site with National Workforce as well. I don't think I need to tell anyone that last year was, God, I hate that word, unprecedented, but it was a bloody shit show, wasn't it? And really challenging for every agency. So I'd love to hear a bit more about your journeys and your business's journeys last year, and how you guys found it. Jackie, I might start that question with you. How was your 2020?
Look, it was really challenging. Again, another word that everyone's been using to describe last year. I think it it was a year of 4 quarters, like really was. Our first quarter was really strong. We started the year really strong, and we were starting to use some of the tech that we introduced later in through the year. That became quite important that we had that in place, so that was awesome. The middle part of the year was really challenging as far as what clients are trading, what clients aren't trading, and how we're going to navigate our way through that. And then the back end was, hey, everything's back to almost pre-COVID, and how do we now flex up, and how do we use our systems and process that we had a bit of time to implement over that time to help our workflows go faster, speak to market improve, and all of those things. So it was a challenging year we got through, and I think we're better for the experience.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard very similar stories, Jackie, from a lot of different agencies. I think there's an opportunity to introduce a lot of different things to businesses that businesses didn't initially have time for in the boom time. And a lot of tech was introduced by a lot of different agencies that I saw. Sinead, how was it for you and Lotus?
2020 was a journey. Look, honestly, it was without a doubt the toughest year of my life. I think that the resilience muscle has been flexed within an inch of its life. Yeah, it was a really tough year. I think we, come March, instantly, along with many kind of white collar recruitment agencies, instantly had a massive drop in revenue overnight. I was actually in LA as COVID was hitting, and I flew back from LA, landed into 2 weeks of quarantine. Obviously, my trip was cut short, 2 weeks of quarantine. And within that time, I made kind of quick decisions to make some of my team redundant, which was incredibly tough to do in a small business over Zoom, and yeah, doing it remote and everything. So it started off really tough. And I think for us, it was a lot of, it kind of gave us the opportunity to say, do you know what, where can we add value? So we really, rather than hibernating, we really decided to kind of jump into action. And we did a lot around, I mean, we very much stand for kind of candidate experience. It's part of the ethos of what we're about. And so we launched outplacement and career transitioning services. We did a huge amount of client support with workshops and webinars and redundancy support. We hosted a lot of panels and webinars and roundtables. And so I think we kind of very quickly said, okay, how do we add value, and how does this align with our values? And we kind of went from there. So yeah, look, it was a tough year. At the end of the year as well, I actually did lose a couple of my team to internal talent roles, which again, I think we've seen a huge amount of the industry leave the industry last year. So across the board, it was a lot of lessons. Definitely, as I say, that resilience muscle was flexed, but very much would never want to live through it again, but very much put us in very, very good stead. We've hired some amazing new hires and looking at a lot of new tech, and in a very, very strong position for the total 180 that happened kind of at the beginning of this year and the end of last year. So yeah, don't make me do it again though.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to do it again. How was it for you guys at Mayday, Lynn?
I guess similar to Jackie and Sinead have said, it was really tough. We kind of straight away, myself and the founding directors really reached out to industry experts to say, what's your advice, and business consultants as well. And one of the main things that we were told straight off the bat is act quickly. You need to move quickly and make changes if you want to have a business at the end of this, because it's not going away overnight. I've worked in tough markets before. I think I got my first permanent recruitment gig in Australia in 2008 when it was the GFC. So I know what it was like to work in a really tough market when the jobs just weren't there and it was very competitive. But there was the whole added element of not being able to see people and not being able to have that human connection face to face. So, similar to what Sinead said, having those conversations over Zoom was not ideal at all. The kind of conversations, that if you're in the room, you'd be able to deliver so much more emotion and ensure people are okay. But we made quick changes. We changed the staff, all the team's hours. Everyone was reduced down to try and sustain us financially and revenue-wise. But we were able to get everyone back up to full-time by September, which we thought was a really positive sign. Our business was very sort of 50% revenue from temp placements and 50% from perm. Perm took a massive drop, but our temp actually boomed. So we've got a lot of big corporate clients that needed volume recruitment because of various external factors, knock-on effects from COVID, with some of their overseas centres and things like that, where they needed onshore jobs. So we actually were really busy in temp and had some really huge projects. And you know, in the middle of that, we left our office space. We didn't re-sign at the end of June. We were kind of homeless for a little while, and now we're back in new offices as of October. Team back to full time. Ended the year on a real high, and really strongly, and kind of meeting our quarterly goals and all those sorts of things. So yeah, tough, but for me, probably one of the best years of my career, even though it was one of the toughest, because I learned a lot. And I think as a team, we've become really close because we've come through that. So our team are really appreciative that, you know, they did hold on to their jobs and that we've come out in a really good position.
Yeah, but it's actually really good to see, isn't it? Teams have just become more bonded, going through that period together. And I've got to say, it was just really nice to see throughout COVID, all of your businesses putting so much value out there online. As an outsider looking in, you guys really, really stepped up, and it was really nice to see. What would you say some of your biggest challenges were throughout that period? Sinead, what would you say the biggest challenges were, aside from the obvious ones? Were there any that sort of you weren't expecting?
Look, I think it probably was the obvious ones. I mean, it's hard to even call them obvious when it's such a bizarre, unusual situation that we found ourselves in. But at the end of the day, we're in the people business, and I think having that isolation away from each other and really trying to maintain those connections. I mean, we can obviously speak about it now, and we're all back in the world, so it kind of feels redundant at this point, but it was one of the biggest challenges, and we definitely leaned on a lot of tech to support that, to make sure that we were kind of having those connection pieces. But it definitely was the people piece. One thing we saw, we had a psychologist come in and do kind of a mental health first aid session with the team, and one thing she recommended doing, which we've been implementing since mid last year and we still do it today, is to, on our morning meetings, whether we're in the office or whether we're hybrid or remote, go around and rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 of just how you're doing mentally. How are you doing? And that's something that at the time, even though we were on Zoom, we were disconnected, we weren't all together, and it's hard to gauge how people are doing, we kind of tapped into that, and it was a really nice way of going, everyone seems fine, but you know what, I'm a 5. I had a terrible night's sleep, I'm really stressing about this job, or whatever it might be. And then you kind of have the ability to feel the energy of people a little bit more, which can be very hard to do with technology. So yeah, look, I think the people challenges, aside from the obvious ones, which were of course daily cash flow projections and looking at costs and what's coming in, every cent that's coming in, every cent that's coming out. I mean, that was all the kind of, yeah, as you say, the obvious ones. But the people experience, I think, with candidates, clients, and our internal team was definitely the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Was that the same for you, Lynn, and your business? What sort of challenges what were the biggest ones for you?
For me personally, I think it was probably spreading myself a bit thin as a leader, because you want to be there for everybody, and we've got team managers in place, but even they were feeling the pressure of now managing a remote team, but they never had any experience in doing that before. So making sure you've got all those check-in points, but also feeling the pressure of, yeah, we need to be putting content out, we need to be running events, we need to be creative, this is our time, like we can do so much in this space. But it's also then that puts a lot of pressure on you as a leader to make sure you're doing everything. So personally, that for me was probably the biggest challenge. I think for the team, it was the connectivity, and a lot of people join Mayday because of the culture. That's one of the things that they say whenever they choose us over another agency, or they decide to join us from overseas, whatever it is. It's, I love the team, I love the environment, I love the culture, and it felt difficult in those initial stages to get that, and we did have to lean on tech, and there's no other way to do that. But and I feel like we did keep the momentum going, but it was obviously difficult to do, you know, completely remotely, from seeing each other every day. So I think that was probably the biggest team part, was them being able to actually see each other. In fairness, most of them live in the eastern suburbs. They did Bondi to Coogee walks in the morning. They were constantly meeting outside of their work hours to do that, which I was just so happy to hear and see, because it meant that they were still getting a bit of that time with their teammates.
Yeah. God, it is still so hard, isn't it, actually getting that connectivity amongst the team all online. It's amazing that we've got the tech to do it, but it is still difficult, and it doesn't replace that face-to-face sort of interaction and team bonding that you get in person. How about you, Jackie? What were some of the challenges your business faced?
Similar people challenges. You know, there's everyone had their own journey through that period and their own personal circumstances that impacted their response and their resilience. So managing through that and leading the team, and everybody, you know, I'm really proud of the way our business came through that. It was, you know, I couldn't be any more prouder, actually. They did a great job. But I think there was no roadmap to last year. Like, it was, there was no previous year to gauge on, are we doing well, are we not? I don't think any one competitor, you could even gauge yourself on those, because depending on your client mix will depend if you're busy or not busy, you know, making people redundant, hiring new people. So that was probably the most challenging part. No rule book, but that was also probably the biggest benefit or advantage, that we could use that time to implement things that may otherwise have taken another year or two to do. And some of that did require us to get the team on board, and we did have some resistance with technology early on. Some people were early adopters, and that was great, and they kind of led the way and brought the team with them. So I think, yeah, getting the team on board, removing obstacles for them was one thing with that. The other one was just creating good communication. Both the ladies have spoken about internal. Yep, that is the case, but you know, we have a big casual pool. They're our employees as well, and communicating with them and sharing the information that we learn to that workforce is really, really important. So we found ways to do that, and ways to talk with them during business hours and outside of business hours when they could talk to us. So that were some of those challenges that we had.
A follow-up question to that, Jackie. I'm going to stay with you. What sort of tech did you use to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I guess we're kind of lucky that we had started using chatbot technology at the back end of 2019, and it was early on, and mostly that was around our hospitality business, where we do volume events. So we had some things in place, but it was in a very small part of our business where we had 5 recruiters exposed to it. But yeah, we used so Smart AI did chat flows for our recruiting of people. That really assisted us getting volume in quickly. We just flicked the switch on that, and we integrated a bit further into our system. So our CRM talks to, you know, posting our ads. Ad response comes in. We call our Smart AI chatbot Charlie. So Charlie then screens candidates, shortlists them, and then books them for interview through a system called Calendly. So our consultants were able to do so much of that grunt work, initial, you know, volume of screening, without actually coming into contact with candidates. And I think what really worked well for us, as the candidate application rates changed throughout the year, we were able to make sure that everyone was contacted, everyone was treated the same, and we got people through, and we shortlisted them and interviewing them, because everyone had to change to virtual interviewing from face to face. They could spend more time to do that and really build a relationship with the candidate at that level. So that's sort of how we did that. But yeah, we had a whole lot of tech, and the challenge was getting it integrated, making sure that all the systems spoke to each other. Otherwise, I think my recruiters would have thrown it out the window and said, no, not going to do that, Jack. And so that was probably the biggest thing that we needed to get all moving together.
Awesome. I love the sound of that tech, Jackie, especially for that high volume, and considering last year when application volumes would have gone through the roof. Having that piece of tech that would screen all of that would save heaps of time.
Yeah, and it definitely did.
Love that. How about you, Glenn? What sort of tech did you guys use?
For the connection piece, I guess very familiar to a lot of people probably on the webinar, but we used Zoom a lot for our actual client meetings. The team did a lot of interviews with candidates over Zoom, over FaceTime. I think at the very beginning we were, you're hearing lots of different people say what type of tech you should be using. So we were trying Google Hangouts and we're like, should we be on Teams? And you feel this kind of pressure to be like, oh, what's the right one for us? And are we meant to be using that? So I think learnings from that is, yes, try different things, but go with the one that people feel most comfortable using. And you don't have to spend the earth on it either. Quite often they can be quite reasonably priced. When it comes to, I guess, the rest of that connection piece, we moved to a new phone system, like an online phone system, so we don't have the kind of hard, the old traditional phones aren't in the office anymore, and that's in the last few months. And that's been great. It also has a meeting function within it, and the consultants can answer from mobile through the main line and transfer to their laptop, and it's kind of very, very easy to use, and we've got great feedback on that. I think the rest of the tech side, I think leaning on your CRM, obviously this is a JobAdder webinar, we're all JobAdder customers, making sure your customer database is up to date, that is categorized correctly, both on the candidate and the client side. It just means that you can tailor your messaging out to hundreds of people in one go, and it's a personal message, and it really does apply to them. So making sure that you use that. There's so many other functions within it that we didn't know to use until the last few months, because we kind of were coming up against issues. So as an example, in our blue collar business, there's a lot of compliance that goes along with that. Jackie, I'm sure as you know, and all those WHS forms and all those things that had been manual before, we've now been able to automate through JobAdder. So just saving the consultants tons of time with that. So I think that, speak to your own providers, because there's probably things within their realm that they can either work with you on or they already have in place. But I guess for us, it's those sort of more traditional ones that we did use. And since then, we've used some other tech when it comes to new tech, when it comes to sort of our marketing, our messaging, surveys, web, all of those sorts of things. But I guess the core ones are those that I've just mentioned, using your CRM, using Zoom, and using any add-ons that can add value to the business.
Love that, Lynn. That's really good advice. I think it's quite important, yes, as you said, to try new software, but I think you can just get bamboozled because there's so much out there and the prices vary so significantly. And when you actually look at it, you can usually get something at a very cost-effective price that does almost everything that you need it to do. You don't need all the bells and whistles.
Absolutely.
Sinead, how about you and Lotus? What sort of tech did you guys use?
Yeah, look, I fully agree with the ladies, I guess, from Lynn's perspective. JobAdder utilization, that just makes so much sense to me. It is so customizable. It is so easy to use. I'm the biggest advocate for using the system correctly. But I think, as Lynn said, you don't know what you don't know. So it's worth looking into and worth exploring to really figure out. I mean, I've been using it for 5 years and we're very CRM and kind of data integrity focused here at Lotus, and I just found out that you can have mandatory fields. I never knew that you could have a mandatory field within a contact kind of record. So I think that utilizing the database encoding and categorizing correctly is absolutely crucial. As I mean, obviously with your new business, HumeScope, you and Laura Hopes have been kind of talking me through and advising us on efficiencies and ways to automate, and you introduced me to Zero Bounce, which is literally just cleansing your contact list. And oh my goodness, like, it's a project and I'm in the project, but I just know this is going to change our lives. Every quarter I will be making the consultants, that's the wrong word, isn't it? Encouraging, implementing. I will be every quarter making sure that we are cleaning all of our contact list, taking it out, putting it back in, and everything is going to be squeaky clean. And I know we will speak on that. I'm probably jumping ahead now, but it just allows us to kind of reach people faster and in an easier way. And similar to Jackie, we've been using Smart AI for about a year. Our chatbot is called Riley, and Riley's been fantastic at reactivating kind of dormant and inactive candidates. But on the same in the same token, we're looking at it again for the application process, exactly how Jackie's using it. Candidate experience is huge for us. So we want to try and automate the heavy lifting part of it, but at the same time not impact the candidate and applicant experience, and make sure that people are still having that kind of engagement with us and everyone's being responded to, etc. So look, exactly like the others, I think last year was Zoom and Teams and figuring out just what worked for us, and I know we'll kind of touch more on kind of the ins and outs of some of the technology we're using later on.
Thanks so much, ladies. Really good advice. So much bloody tech out there, I love it. In terms of automating processes, it's the next sort of piece that I'd like to get into, and all three of your businesses have got really strong reputations for really solid client relationships. So I'd love to know from each of you what sort of tech your businesses use to automate parts of that sort of manual and repetitive tasks and processes for your consultants, so you do have the time to focus on those all-important client relationships. Len, I might jump in with you if that's all right with that one.
I think some of the admin tasks are probably the ones that the consultants put to the bottom of the list, or is it things that take up the most time and take them away from client and candidate conversations. We use Referoo for reference checks. Obviously, it's automated and integrated with JobAdder. We've just started using AllSorter recently for resume formatting. We use different types of video technology for candidate and client interviews. A big one for us, and because a lot of our clients are in the financial services space, is a lot of our clients require the candidates to be background checked. We use a company called Pass Technology for that, who are very innovative. They're a tech company. They don't classify themselves as a background check company, more technology based. But just little things like, I remember back when I was a consultant having to get people background checked to place them in my old client Telstra, and the process of it and finding a JP and all of that was just like, it went to the bottom of my list. But very time consuming, and this has got like the facial recognition technology. Candidates can do it on their phone. So things like that made the actual time to hire a lot quicker for us as well, and to actually get people placed, and you don't lose candidates in a lengthy process. So what I would say is, if you are an early adopter of one of those types of technology, like we were with Pass, they actually worked with us then on what are the other checks that some of your big clients need. We work a lot with Big Four, and some of them have, sort of 10, 12 different types of checks, not just your standard place checks. So they actually worked with us on that, and they've developed those and brought them into their technology over the last sort of 12 months. So working with businesses that you are suppliers that you do use, and asking them what else they can do, because they want to help you. I think that was a big thing for us. So those are some of some of the main things that we've had automated. We're also working on, it's a manual process at the moment, but it's JobAdder are working with us on a potential trialing how we automate it. As the girls will both be familiar with, if you've done any contract temp recruiting, the casual loading process, and making sure that you're quoting base rate plus casual loading, you're now getting approvals from the candidates that they're aware of what that looks like. That's a very lengthy automated, or very sort of lengthy and manual process. And we've tried to automate it as much as possible, but we're working with JobAdder on a trial of how they can integrate it better into their system. So again, if you've got issues, if you've got things that are manual and they're laborious, talking to suppliers, they will actually try and work with you to solve some of them. So that's, I guess, looking into this year, something else that'll be solved from us that is actually a pain and a lengthy process for our consultants at the moment. But we're always asking them, we're like, what are the parts of your job that are annoying you? We just did an employee survey, and we got some more of those pain points. So we're taking them away to think, okay, well, how do we automate that a bit more? How do we make a bit of an easier process? Do we even need it? Maybe it's something we actually don't need, or maybe it's something that can be shortened down a lot or could be automated. So yeah, we use different types of technology, but you know, we're not there, we're not 100% yet, and we're still working on some of those things to make it easier for people, making it easier for the people in the business to focus on the relationship side. I think it's so important.
Oh, absolutely, Lynn. I think that's really important, getting that feedback from your team as well, to see what parts of the process, because I think as business owners and leaders, you can forget about all the little bits of the job that you sort of forgotten about because you did them a few years ago. If I set myself back to recruiting for the NHS in the UK, the laborious nature of getting a candidate onboarded into the NHS, it was a million different checks and paperwork. I'd have loved to have had that automated. Jackie, what sort of tech is your business using for sort of automating that monotonous or manual repetitive tasks?
Yeah, I think the big one is definitely that screening and booking interviews, and Charlie, chatbot, Smart AI does that. The other thing which we brought into the business a number of years ago, which is electronic registration and onboarding, and we've developed that over the last 18 months. We use Onboarded for that, so that integrates seamlessly into our CRM, and it also integrates with Smart AI, so the candidate experience is seamless. I think our consultants don't understand, new ones that have joined the business in the last couple of years, don't understand what it took to actually register a candidate and data enter all of the information into the CRM. So all of that went, and I think they're the things that really bog consultants down and prevent them spending more time building relationships with candidates and also clients. So I think that's, yeah, the onboarded piece for us is we've just bolted that further and further, and the latest thing that we did at the back end of last year was integrate our health and well-being into that onboarded process, and that saves just a double handle for consultants. It was in a different system, and again, it comes back down to how do we integrate everything into one platform to seamlessly make the candidate journey, you know, as seamless as possible.
Awesome. Jackie, you mentioned in a previous chat offline how many sort of candidates or applicants your chatbot had screened. It was insane, 33,000 in 2020.
Yeah, massive. And you know, the best thing about that was all 33,000 people were connected with. You know, I guess people listening to us today would go, you can't get to those people manually. How do you do that? Like, one person could work for, you know, 12 hours a day every week, and you still can't get to all your ad response. You just can't. So this way we do, we keep them engaged, and we continue to connect with these people through Charlie, our chatbot, so that these people don't forget who we are, and they may have found another job before they work for us. But our hope is that by continually engaging with them, that, you know, our database becomes stronger and people come to us first when they find themselves out of a job next.
I've got a quick follow-up question for you, Jackie.
Go on.
How does your consultants go? Because I think the pushback that my head goes to is what consultants would say with chatbots is, well, they're not going to do it as well as I can. I assume you had the same sort of pushback, did you, with the consultants going, well, we don't want a chatbot doing this?
Yeah, like a couple of our youngest operators were the ones who pushed back the most, and it was interesting because the Y Gen, I think even one of them would be the Z Gen. I think they would be the early adopters, and they weren't. And I think the human element, you will probably never get as good as that. You know, the whole, I'm screening this candidate for this role, but they're exceptional for this other role. But look, I think it's in how well the workflow in the chat is written to be able to capture all of the skills for that candidate and adopt them to whatever role is available. So, and I think, you know, Charlie's getting smarter every day. He's learning from things that are shortlisted that don't automatically go through, that we end up putting through the process. He learns, or he or she, that's why it's Charlie, it's gender neutral, and that Charlie learns that if you continue to put these types of people, then they're the people that will go through, because that's artificial intelligence. It's getting smarter and smarter based on the experience. And now we're getting, you mentioned 33,000 people last year, and the more people go through that, we're finding we touch it less. We're less human intervention, and we're not losing people through the bottom.
Amazing. I love that. I love that Charlie sounds very human and like a child. Charlie's learning every day.
We get candidates come in. Yeah, candidates call up and say, hey, can I speak to Charlie? And we go, yeah, no worries, speak to Charlie.
So what has your business used in terms of tech to automate any parts of the process?
Similar to what's been mentioned, our Charlie is Riley, also gender neutral. And yeah, I guess similar thing. I think it's we get people calling asking for Riley as well, and I think we've utilized it in one capacity, which is regeneration of candidates, and that's been great to kind of, our database is 5 years old now, so that's been great to kind of touch people who we might necessarily have been in contact with for 5 years, but now we are kind of at the early stages of what Jackie is describing, which is that real I guess shortlisting and application stage kind of in the process. I think with where we're at and where our heads are at is that it's 2021 for us has been a total 180. We are, and I know the market is across the board, but we are insanely busy. And it's exactly as Lynn described, it's looking at where are the inefficiencies. And for us, it's we have a huge volume of responses coming through to kind of everything that we have out online, all of our ads. And we also commit to getting back to candidates and applicants within 48 hours with an outcome. So we've just got Justin Hillier and his new initiative with the RCSA, the Responded initiative. We've just made the pledge that we will say and commit to getting back to every single applicant, which we already do. So we were very happy to get involved with that. But even that technology of using Responded, that fully integrates with JobAdder. And we then have a percentage, at the moment it's 100% of applicants responded to within that time frame. But we can monitor that. So that again is something that's taken off me. It's now on a dashboard through Recruiter Insider, and myself and Dave, my associate director, we are monitoring that, watching that, and if there's ever any drop or anything we need to address, it's all tracked through there. So that's definitely been really helpful. And all of that, again, our biggest pain point at the moment is just that kind of the recruitment process, the actual recruitment process of sourcing and kind of bringing people in. It's like, where can we find the efficiencies in that? Because that probably feels like it's more laborious, or that it hasn't really changed necessarily in a number of years. So great, how can we change it? And then similar to Lynn, we use Referoo, which has been great. On the client side, I think it's just easy. It's easy to use, and it's all, again, fully integrates with JobAdder, and the guys there are fantastic and were fantastic all through 2020 in their support. And we also use to get Recruiter Insider, which I've mentioned in its normal capacity, which is survey send outs and monitoring candidate experience as well. Did I cut you off there, as were you going to say something?
No, you didn't. You just answered 2 questions, and you answered the second question that I was about to ask already.
Intuitive.
So whoever's editing this video afterwards, I'll ask the question and they'll put you into it. I was just going to ask candidate experience. I know it's really high priority for all 3 of your agencies. That's quite clear. And it's something you obviously prioritise. What sort of cool tech have you used? You've obviously used, a few of you use chatbots. Is there any other sort of tech that you use on the candidate side to enhance candidate experience? Lynn, I might go to you on this one first.
Aside from what the ladies have said, not so much. We use the Recruiter Insider, and we obviously track the candidate experience at all stages throughout the recruitment process, both before they're placed and after placement, which I feel was really important. We actually use Sourcer on our blue collar side of our business, because that actually, the setup of that suited our blue collar business a little bit better at that point in time, and also it's great for branding for a new business for us that didn't really have a brand in the construction, engineering, labour hire space. So we use that for the candidate experience there, and our 2 labour hire temp consultants in that business are the highest. They're number 1 for construction recruiters across Australia right now. I think they were 1 and 2. So things like that to up your consultant profile as well, which is great, at the same time monitoring that candidate experience for them. I guess it's not crazy new tech, but when it comes to the candidate engagement piece throughout that time and ensuring that they did feel included and all of that, we ran like temp clinics through Zoom webinars. We were very much a kind of like warm and fuzzy agency. We used to go out and see our candidates all the time. We were very much in their face on site. delivering sweets and, you know, bit of May Day merchandise and all of that. So that piece was really missing. We converted all the prizes and everything to like online competitions. So we did quite a few of those throughout 2020. I'm trying to see if I get the name right. We did our one for Easter was Bunnies in Hibernation, Temps in Isolation. And it was this competition of one of their funniest sort of isolation moments. And we got a great response from all our kind of working candidates on some crazy scenarios they'd had working from home. And then the prize was, I can't remember if that was what, everything turned into virtual prizes. So it's Uber Eats vouchers because people are stuck at home and all of those sorts of things. So just making sure you tailor it to that. So yeah, I think just keeping up that engagement piece with your candidates is really important throughout that, whenever you can't see them face to face. And we also transitioned about, I think it was 110 temps that were in offices to work remotely. So making sure that that was a good process for them, and it happened quite seamlessly. We obviously then had to integrate, you know, all that those types of compliance checks and forms into our JobAdder, so making sure that that's all automated and tracked so that the candidates can work from home safely. So yeah, there was a lot of moving parts to that over the last 12 months, but I feel coming out of it that we've got that technology working well. But I'm just listening to Jackie and Sinead, and I'm interested in things that they're using that we're not. So yeah, this is good learning for me as well. I think I need a Riley and a Charlie, perhaps. The amount of volume that we have right now, we might need both of them, but we maybe headhunt them, joking. But we actually, I think it's, when I think about something that the team have said recently about one of the kind of things that's taken up a lot of time, the smart AI solution might solve for that. So I'll be getting in touch with them. I'm sure they'll get in touch with me, but sure. Yeah, we're all learning on new ways to do this, I think. So yeah, we've got good things in place, but I definitely am keen to learn more.
Yeah, I really like the smart AI thing too. How can I incorporate it at Spencer? Would recruiters respond to smart AI? I could get my own Charlie. Next thing that I'd like to go through, team, is sort of recruitment challenges that will come up, no doubt, this year, and how tech stacks can assist or counter those challenges for us. So I'd love to know, are you using any new tech, or are you in the process of about to use some new piece of tech? And can you tell us about it and what the benefits, if you've started using it, have been so far? Sinead, I might go to you on this one.
Yeah, sure. So look, as I said, I think technology for me, as it will be for many, many people listening, is going to be technology and really looking at that whole kind of tech stack. And that's exactly where my head is. This is all well timed because it's exactly where my head is at the moment. I actually met with Andrew from RecMate last week, and he was fantastic. He essentially is the conduit between all of the recruitment tech out there and us and the agency. And so I think really looking at, as Lynn said, there's just so much out there, and I've written down the technology that both of you have suggested as well. And I think having the ability to really assess kind of what's working, what isn't, what can work for us, what can be tailored, that's going to be really important. In terms of what we have just started using, I know I've referenced Zero Bounce on your recommendation, Ez, but that's been amazing for just the data cleansing. You also suggested Loom to me, Ez, and I've been using Loom for video technology and video creation. And I think naturally this year, as it has been for the last couple of years, video is going to be a huge focus, and it's going to be a big one for content. And we're very much focused on content and what we're putting out and what we're pushing out. And Loom so far in the, is it a week? Did you tell me about it a week ago? Yeah. In the week that I've been using it, it has been fantastic. And again, I think video technology and really seeing kind of what we can use to make that process as easy as possible is going to be really helpful as well. So yeah, look, I think in that stage now, not fully out the door with Riley on the application side of the smart AI technology, but everything is in motion. So speak to me at the end of this year. I'll tell you what worked, what didn't.
I bet you're just going to be humming. A lot of Charlies going on.
All of the Rileys. Charlie's. I won't even have to think. That's the goal.
Sitting there in a room on your own with loads of chatbots around you.
My giant tea surrounded by bots. Is that how it works? I think not.
Jackie, can you tell us about any sort of tech that you have recently started using?
Look, we implemented a rostering system last year, so moved a bit away, or toward the end of last year, moved away from spreadsheets. We are king of Excel spreadsheets, but that is good. It's improved the experience to the candidates, speed to roster, and it saves the consultants a bucket load of repetitive time. So that's been a really good one that we need to develop further. That does integrate with our CRM, which is excellent. It saves a whole lot of putting jobs on, like replicating in both systems, so that's really good. And I think the other thing that we'll focus a bit more time on is developing Charlie and do more customised chat flows for specific client roles, where we do a bit more bulk with certain clients. That will just enhance the shortlisting process. But so I guess that's where our focus will be in this year. And then continuing to develop everything we've got and go back, look at the data. Where can we do it better? Why are things working well in one location but not another, or certain roles but not another? So I think there's a bit of analysing data that we need to do this year.
Awesome. And Lynn, tell us about your tech that you've tried out.
Lucky last. I think outside of what the girls have said, obviously the client and the candidate experience, wherever we can use technology to improve that experience for them is vital. I also think now more than ever, recruitment is marketing, and we've put a huge focus on that over the last few months. I was trying to remember the names of all of them, but we use VSDC for our videos. We use subtitles so that and the different consultants have access to that to be able to actually make a quick video, jump in there, put the subtitles on it, and be able to post it on LinkedIn. So anything that's that kind of getting your message out to market quickly in a really engaging way. So I think 2021, there's a lot of recruiters themselves on this, and maybe even there are people that are in that sort of smaller to medium-sized businesses where you don't have a huge marketing department behind you, and you need to be able to do it yourself, pretty much, jump on there. It's having those really great tools to do that. We're very lucky. We've got an amazing marketing manager, and we also have our amazing, that's Jolo. I'll give her a message because she helped me set this up this morning. And Vanessa, who has marketing as part of her role. We've got a little digital marketing team now, and we use Miro for our sort of collaboration to jump on and be able to throw ideas, because we tend to be working in different offices. Vanessa mostly works remote. Sometimes I'm at home, and it's making sure that we can do all of that and have a really visual place to go and put ideas and images and things like that. Managing workloads through Trello has been great, particularly if you're in a job you've got a lot of different things going on. It's great for that marketing function. And then, like, the savior to probably most small businesses or medium-sized businesses out there is Canva. Like, we use it to death. It's amazing. Everyone loves it. It's just so, I think it's great. And yeah, it's kind of user friendly that way. So I'm able to jump in and edit things and make those sort of posts and all of that. So making sure that your marketing is right, I think, is going to be one of the most important things this year. Something else we've really concentrated on is going out to our clients and candidates to survey them, to do market research, and then to put that in a great format where they can actually read it, they can gain insights from it. So again, 2 big projects that we did last year, but now getting those out to market. So all through marketing, I think that's, for me, that's probably our biggest focus, and that will create the engagement, because both on the candidate and the client side, and for us to attract consultants into the business, we're back in that growth phase again. This is a year where we want people to, look at May Day and think that's a great place to work. So making sure that, via those platforms, you've got the best content, it looks good, it's articulate, if it's in video, it's easy to see, it's easy to read, all of that, just so it's the quickest, best engagement for your customers.
Really, really valid points there, Lynn. Yeah, I think marketing is super important this year, especially, and last year as well. And you mentioned that having the ability for consultants to actually edit things, it's so important. So I think that's where things fall over when consultants have amazing ideas and they go, okay, we now need to wait for a marketing department. Well, actually, no, you can train consultants on really effective tools like Canva. It's amazing. Have templates ready for your consultants to be able to edit and get things out with speed, so they don't get left behind. It's so important.
Make their own videos as well, so they're not waiting around in a list and a busy marketing person to get to it later that day. You might need it up that morning. So not everyone loves doing it, but we've got a few people in the business that love it, and they've got their own, and they're off. They're doing their own video. Like, go for it.
It's so funny just training consultants. I've been doing this for years, but training them on just simple video editing, it's so daunting, and I get it because it's a platform you've never used, but so many of them are quite easy to use and it takes not long to sort of get your head around. Ladies, you've all trialed new software. I think everyone's trialed so much software in the last year. I'd love your advice on how do you personally evaluate it, and just advice on adoption, because once you've evaluated, you've gone through the process of seeing what's out there, you pick one. The next sort of stumbling block is making sure it's adopted. So just advice around that would be awesome, and how you guys have approached that. Jackie, I might go to you first on this one.
Thank you, Alex. Look, I think the biggest lesson I learned, and it was probably Raj from Smart AI, Jack, nothing ever is going to be 100% when you go live. And just get it up, and it might be at 80% and then finesse it. And I think if we didn't take that advice on board, I think we still wouldn't be live with anything. So that's probably the best advice I can give, is that nothing will be perfect. Understand that and be flexible to change as it evolves and you evolve. And yeah, that would probably be my one takeout. Is.
Amazing. Thanks, Jackie. Sinead, what would your advice be on that?
Yeah, look, I think obviously there's a lot of work that goes into launching and implementing any new technology, but I know personally the one thing that I always make sure I do is just speaking to my networks. I think the recruitment industry is so good at giving advice and sharing information and sharing insights, and I know for me, I don't use or launch or speak to any kind of new technology platform without going out and saying, hey, has anyone used these guys? Has anyone got good feedback? Lynn, you and the Mayday directors have been amazing for that. I'm like, Referoo, how are you guys finding it? You're like, yep, go ahead. But I think that's amazing. I think that's such a good way to make sure that you are just getting, and of course it's going to be different businesses, different requirements, taking that with a pinch of salt. But at the end of the day, we have this massive network of owners and people within recruitment. We should be speaking to each other and we should be leaning on each other. And I'm a massive advocate for community and networks. So I think, yeah, making full use of that is a really good place to start.
Love that, Sinead. 100% agree. Lynn, how about you? Any advice on evaluating and adopting?
Yeah, it's a really good point, because we've also brought in tech and then no one's used it. Like, anyone using it? No, we're still getting an invoice for this. So I think really monitoring the usage as looking at, okay, what are we paying? What's actually, how many people are actually logged into this? How many people are using it? That has happened in the past, and it's generally because it's not really solving the problem for the team, or they didn't get the sort of early engagement with it. So I think from say you're thinking of a new technology, definitely really work with whoever your salesperson or account manager is on that, to make sure they're given really thorough live demos and they're getting your people to use it. But the training piece is massive. So the initial training, but also the training in a month's time, the training 2 months down the line, to make sure it is all working correctly, people are doing it the right way. So for me, it's that, getting them on board with it. Why is it going to solve this problem? How is it going to help them? Making sure they're fully trained on it and they can see what it's like, they get the feel for it. And then make sure you're checking on the usage, because there are a lot of new things out there. What I would say is, don't lock yourself into any, a 12-month contract until you really know your people are going to use it and they're going to see value from it. And that's happened to us in the past. We've had to walk away from things and say, look, it's not really working. People aren't getting it. Or, you know, sure, we've all experienced it. If the support function of that new tech, you know, sometimes it's whether it's not on, you know, it's not in Australia, or they're not easy accessible, or it doesn't work to your working hours, things like that can really be big stumbling blocks to make sure that it actually does get used. So considering all those factors before you do bring something on board, I think is really important.
Thanks so much, Lynn. Super valuable. I think every single business owner that would be on this call has made that same mistake of getting tech in and it not being used, and then you've spent all this money. I certainly have made that mistake before. Now I'm just conscious of time. I did have one quick fire question, just the last one. So if you could give me a very short, succinct answer. Now that we're on the other side of 2020 and as horribilis, what tech do you see as absolutely indispensable to agencies, and why? Might go with you, Jackie, on this one.
Succinct is my name. Yep. I think it's definitely a good CRM, and making sure that all the tech you have integrates. What we've got in place now, I don't see how we can run the volumes we run without having that in place. So I'd say most of what we have in place is now good, and it's just now developing it.
Awesome. Sinead?
Look, for me, I think it would be Recruiter Insider or some sort of candidate experience tracking tool. I think that this year is going to be candidate short. We're going to have, there's so many different factors, as we know, as to why it will be hard to find good people, and making sure that you are having the best candidate experience and treating people well. It's going to be crucial, and it's going to be how we'll get referrals and have people continue coming in through the doors. So that's probably my one.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And Lynn?
Very similar. I think making sure that your CRM, you're using a good CRM, and that it's up to date and it's really well looked after, really well categorized, and use that. Similar to Sinead, feedback process is really important. So we use Recruiter Insider predominantly that across our business, and Sourcer. So having both of those feedback tools in the business. The other thing I wrote down was just marketing technology. So whatever that looks like for you, we've got a few different things we use, but whatever can get your message out to the market quickly and keep them engaged is going to be vital this year.
Amazing. Guys, I'm so sorry for everyone in attendance. I'm not the best MC. I have run over and I've not managed this well. And I've got a whole heap of questions in the question box. So if everyone's good to stay on for a couple of minutes, we can answer a few questions. I've just gone through them, and quite a few have already been answered through the last hour. So I might just pick out a few, if that's all right with Jackie, Sinead, Lynn. If you guys have got a few minutes.
Yeah, I've only got a couple, sorry, as I'm backing into another.
Cool. So the rostering technology, Kylie Saunders has asked, I think this one's for you, Jackie, before you head off. What is the rostering technology you spoke about, and what is the online phone system that Len spoke about?
The rostering system is Ento, and we've worked quite closely to try and get that integrating well into the CRM.
Amazing. And Glenn, what was the phone system that you used?
It's called 8x8, the number 8x8.
Awesome.
8x8.
Kylie, that's Kylie Saunders, who I know very well. Kylie, I'll send you the details.
Oh, awesome. Text for volume assessments. I think that was answered through the call. We've done the chatbot. The chatbot's called. Sinead, what was your chatbot called? Is it the same system? It's Smart AI, isn't it?
You can name it whatever you want, but yeah, Smart AI is the who this is sponsored by.
Awesome. Sean Greeley, is anyone using Notion? I've never heard of Notion. Sean, sorry, I've never heard of it either. I've no idea what it is. And I'll go with the last question. Aware of Referoo, but wondered aside from that, if anyone has explored a transcriber software for reference checks with no time limitations. Has anyone used transcribing service? I haven't either. Sorry, Claire.
All right.
Can't be able to answer your question. Awesome, we might wrap up here. Guys, thank you so much, Sinead, loads of people, Jackie, National Workforce, Lynn, Mayday, you guys are amazing. And I'm so sorry we ran over. I could talk about tech for hours. But really, really valuable piece of advice, and thanks so much for sharing all the
Thank
awesome
you.
tech that you guys are using.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Well, thanks for attending. Really appreciate it.